Sairam students, let's begin with the class 8 social science history today. We are doing the third part of revision, chapter number 2 from trade to territory. Let's go through the content. We have already completed with introduction. We have completed with East India Company comes East, and we have seen the topic company rule expands. And today we are going to deal with a new topic, that is setting up a new administration. Just have a quick recap what we have learnt in our second session, that is in the second part of our revision. We saw about the company officials become nabobs, and even in the main topic, that is company rule expands, we learned about the new policies, that is the subsidiary alliance, right? Then we saw about the Tipu Sultan, the tiger of Mysore. Then we saw the Anglo-Maratha wars, that is war with the Marathas. Then we learned about a new policy, that is the claim to paramountcy, right? Now, in the company rule expands, the last topic that we are going to do today here is the doctrine of lapse. See, children, we have learnt about the new policies in this company rule expands topic, right? We learnt about the subsidiary alliance. Then they tried to have the claim to paramountcy. Now, the new policy that the company wanted to adopt was the doctrine of lapse. Now, what is the doctrine? The doctrine of lapse. Actually, the final wave of annexation occurred under Lord Dalhousie, who was the Governor General from the year 1848 to year the 1856. He devised a policy that came to be known as the doctrine of lapse. Now, what that policy tells you, the doctrine declared that if an Indian ruler died without a male heir, his kingdom would lapse. That is, it become the part of the company territory. So it is like if any of the Indian ruler dies without any male heir, like there is no one to look after the kingdom of that ruler once he dies, then that kingdom will be taken away. That kingdom would lapse. That means it will be taken away by the East India Company, and that will be becoming the company's territory then. So, one kingdom after another, they started annexing by simply following this policy of doctrine of lapse. Now, in Satara was annexed in the year 1848, Sambhalpur was annexed in the year 1850, Udaipur in the year 1852, Nagpur in the year 1853, and Jhansi in the year 1854. So, finally, in 1856, the company also took over Awadh. This time the British had an added argument. They said that they were obliged by duty to take over Awadh in order to free the people. See, what is the condition that they were giving? They have taken that, they have annexed Awadh in order to free the people from the misgovernment of the Nawabs. That is, enraged by the humiliating way in which the Nawab was deposed, the people of Awadh joined the great revolt that broke out in the year 1857. Now, children, in history textbook, page number 20, this expansion of British rule that has been given to you here, this map tells you about that British rule in the year 1797 and how they were ruling our country in the year 1840 and finally in the year 1857. If you'll compare these three maps, you can see that expansion of British rule has increased year after year. Like you can say in 97 it is not that much, whereas if you'll say 1840 they have annexed a few kingdoms, but whereas if you'll see 1857 most of the part has been captured by the that was under the Britishers rule. Now, setting up a new administration. Now, here the process of like administration is like they wanted to have the process of running a business, like how to frame the policies and how to have the day-to-day administration. So, under this also, children, we have the two main topics, that is the company army, and then at the end we are going to see the conclusion. Setting up a new administration. Now, Warren Hastings, he was a Governor General from the year 1773 to 1785, was one of the important figure who played a significant role in the expansion of the company power. By his time, the company had acquired power not only in Bengal but also in Bombay as well as in Madras. So, British territories were broadly divided into administrative units, that is called as the presidencies. Now, if I'll ask you what is presidencies, that is the British territories that were broadly divided into administrative units, that is called as presidencies. There were three presidencies, that were Bengal, Madras, Bombay. Each was ruled by a governor. The supreme head of the administration was the Governor General. Now, Warren Hastings, the first Governor General, he introduced several administrative reforms, notably in the sphere of justice. So, from the year 1772, a new system of justice was established. In that, each district was to have two courts. That is, one was the criminal court and another one was the civil court. Now, what is that criminal court? That criminal court was called as the Faujdari Adalat, whereas the civil court was called as Diwani Adalat. I'll repeat, a criminal court was called as Faujdari Adalat, whereas the civil court was called as Diwani Adalat. Now, here in this, Maulvis and Hindu Pandits, they interpreted Indian laws for the European district collectors who presided over civil courts. Okay, whereas the criminal courts were still under a Qazi and a Mufti. Now, Qazi means a judge, whereas a Mufti means a jurist of the Muslim community that is responsible for expounding the law that the Qazi would administer. So, Mufti and Qazi, they are connected to the criminal code, whereas the Maulvis and the Hindu Pandits, they were connected to the criminal code. So, criminal court were still under a Qazi and a Mufti, but under the supervision of the collectors. Now, a major problem was that the Brahmin Pandits, they gave different interpretations of local laws based on different schools of the Dharma Shastra. Now, what is the meaning of Dharma Shastra here? Dharma Shastra means that it's a Sanskrit text prescribing the social rules and codes of behavior. Okay. To bring about uniformity, what happened in 1775, 11 Pandits, they were asked to compile a digest of Hindu laws, but then that is to be translated into this digest was translated into English, that was written in Hindi, in Sanskrit. Okay, so that was translated by N.B. Haled. He translated the digest into English. By 1778, a code of Muslim laws was also compiled for the benefit of European judges. So, under the Regulating Act of 1773, a new Supreme Court was established, while a Court of Appeal, that is, a Sadar Nizamat Adalat, was also set up at Calcutta. The principal figure in an Indian district was the collector. What was the main job? His main job was, see, collector, from the word itself you can understand, from the title we can understand collector. His main job was to collect revenue and taxes and maintain law and order in his district. He has to take the help of the judges, police officers, and darogas. Darogas means the police officers, constables only, okay? So his office, the collectorate, became the new center of power and the patronage that steadily replaced previous holders of authority. Now let's move to the next topic, that is the company army. Now how the company decided to have their army. Let's see that. See, colonial rule in India brought in some new ideas of administration and they reformed, but its power rested on its military strength. The Mughal army was mainly composed of two, that is cavalry. Cavalry means the savars, that is the trained soldiers on horseback, whereas the another category was infantry, that is the paidal. Paidal means who walks on their foot, that is the foot soldiers. Okay, the Mughal army was composed of two, that is cavalry and infantry. Cavalry means the savars, that is trained soldiers on horseback, whereas infantry means the paidal foot soldiers or paidal soldiers or foot soldiers. They were given training in archery and as well as how to use a sword. That also the training was given to them. But the cavalry dominated the army and the Mughal state did not feel the need to have a large professionally trained infantry. A change occurred in the 18th century when the Mughal successor states like Awadh and Banaras started recruiting peasants into their armies and training them as the professional soldiers. So the East India Company also adopted the same method when it began recruitment for its own army, which came to be known as the Sepoy Army. This Sepoy Army has been taken from the Indian word Sipahi. In India, we call soldiers as Sipahi, correct? So they have taken that word, the East India Company took that Sepoy Army from the Indian soldiers only. The soldiers of the company's army, what they did, they had to keep pace with the changing military requirements, and its infantry regiments now become very more important, right? So as the warfare technology changed from the 1820, the cavalry requirements of the companies also of the company's army declined. This is because the British army was fighting in Burma, Afghanistan, and Egypt, where soldiers were armed with the musket and matchlock. Now, what is the meaning of this musket and matchlock? Musket means it's a heavy gun that was used by the infantry soldiers, whereas matchlock it's an early type of gun in which the powder was ignited by a match. So the soldiers of the company's army had to keep pace with the changing military requirements. Then what they did? In the early 19th century, the British began to develop a uniform military culture. The soldiers were increasingly subjected to European style training, that is, drill and discipline that regulated their life far more than before. So it is like when they were focusing on all this, the disciplined way of having that army and all this, often this created problems since caste and community feelings were ignored in building a force of the professional soldiers. So many people they were hurt, their feelings were hurt. So as the Indian, they were not ready to accept that to be the soldiers in that way, in the European style. So what did the sepoys feel? How did they react to the changes in their lives and their identity? That is their sense of who they were. So the revolt of 1857 gives us a glimpse into the world of the sepoys. So let's see further now the conclusion here. So finally, thus the East India Company was transformed from a trading company into a territorial colonial power. That is, in the early 19th century, also aided this process. Till then, it would take anywhere between 6 and 8 months to travel to India by sea, whereas steamships they reduced the journey time to 3 weeks, enabling more and more Britishers and their families to come to our country. So by 1857, you can say the company came to exercise direct rule over about 63% of the territory and 78% of the population of Indian subcontinent. So, combined with its direct influence on the remaining territory and the population of the country, the East India Company had virtually the whole of India under its control. So, children, in today's session, we have learnt about the policy that is the doctrine of lapse that was adopted by the East India Company. Then we saw the new strategies that the new changes that they brought about in the administration. That is the company army, the army that East India Company wanted. That is the Sepoy army. That Sepoy word they have taken from the Indian soldiers, that is Sipahi. Okay. Then we saw finally in the year 1857 the uh, East India Company was transformed from a trading company to a British territorial power, right? This is what we have seen in the chapter. So, children, here we have completed with the revision of the chapter number 2 from trade to territory. Go through the main slides, main presentations that have been taught you previously. Even go through the revision videos that has been taught to you now recently. So, here we have come to an end with that chapter number 2. See you in the next session with a new chapter. Till then, children, take care.